44, and the great thing about the internet is I can bring you authors from all over the world. So, welcome, Sam Ritchie. I believe you are coming to us from Spain.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm obviously born in the UK with my very English accent, but yes, I've lived in Spain for the last 19 years.
19, wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're fluent in Spanish.
Fluent would be pushing it. My Spanish is good, but not fluent.
Okay,
My
okay.
kids my
I
kids are fluent.
They must have grown up there. How old are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, 24 and 23.
Okay, so they've spent most of their lives there. Well, welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself and about your book.
Yeah, so I'm Sam Ritchie, as I just told you, and I grew up in England, and I was always able to see things that other people can't normally see. So the spirit world was the place that I was most happy as a child. I was terrified of people. If the doorbell rang, I'd hide, and that led me to an interesting childhood. However, when I was looking for a job, I fell into a state agency, probably not by accident in hindsight. I always had a fascination with buildings, and I was able to move on any spirits that were lingering and sell properties that no one else could sell. And I didn't think anything of it. And we moved, roll on a few years and two kids, and we moved into a house which didn't feel right. You know, when you walk into somewhere and you either feel really
Mhm.
comfortable or you don't. Well, this place didn't. And I didn't know what to do. So I happened to mention to an acquaintance. I knew there was no spirits there, but it just didn't feel right. And she said to me, "Oh, you want to space clear that?" Like, what is space clearing? I never heard of that. And Google wasn't a thing then. So basically, for those who don't know what space clearing is, it's changing the energy, it's removing any negative imprints on a property and enhancing the positive, because everything's energy, right?
Right.
Uh, and so if everything's energy, then our homes are energy as well. And we pick up any negativity, and what we want is to be picking up the positive.
Hmm.
So I've been doing this for 25 years, just everywhere we've lived. If a friend or family member said that they had a funny smell or things just didn't feel right in their home, then I'd go and space clear for fun.
Right. Part of the reason I'm so interested in talking to you is exactly because I don't think that I sense things the way you describe in your book that you do, but I have had experiences in several houses. There was one in Seattle where it was this beautifully restored Victorian, but we went down to the basement and the air was thick with whatever I was feeling, to the point I said, I don't care how nice this is. I don't care what great a price it is. We're not buying it. And then there was another house in, I keep forgetting the name of this town, like Greenwood or Greenville or Green something, Minnesota. And it was huge. And it had these additions. It was only $50,000 with a beautifully, freshly remodeled kitchen, lots of bedrooms upstairs for my kids. And I had a lot of kids still at home, so I desperately wanted this house. But we spent some time in it, my daughter and I. And when we came downstairs, I asked my daughter, trying not to lead her, how did you feel about this? And she immediately said, that red bedroom upstairs, no, there's something wrong with it. And that was exactly where I felt it too. So you talked in your book about a smell in particular. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
I'm
But
not sure either, but I remember reading a story where it was a smell.
yeah,
There was
there.
a woman. You were seeing an old woman in a bed, I think.
Oh, right, okay. Well, there was one time before I started doing this professionally, and someone had asked me to space clear their house. Well, they hadn't actually. What happened was we had a bar and they were a customer, and they kept saying, this awful smell keeps turning up in our house. And then it goes again. And so it's like, oh, I'll come and space clean that. Like you do. And when I got there, there was an old gentleman on the stairs, and he didn't know that he was dead, and he was creating this smell because he's like, why are these people in my house?
Mhm.
So I moved him on. I asked for him to be taken to the light, and then the smell disappeared. But this happens quite a lot. I've had other occasions when loved ones are coming in, they can leave familiar smells. For example, I did a businessman's house because he wanted his business to do better, and I got this really strong menthol Vicks smell. You know, when you got a cold and you put menthol on your
Right,
chest.
right.
I got that smell, and it's like it was connected to his mum or his mother-in-law. And when I open my jewelry box, not all the time, if my mum's around, because it was hers, not all the time, but on occasion when I open it, I get a whiff of her perfume. Now, she's been dead for nearly 20 years. You know, it's not in the fabric still after all that time. So it's
Right,
just a reminder that she's still there, which is really
right.
lovely. So it's not
And my
always a
family
bad
has
thing.
had, yeah, my family has had that experience when my grandmother died for quite a long time. Various members of the family would all of a sudden smell gardenias. And I found it interesting because I don't have a strong sense of smell. In fact, it kind of comes and goes. And one day I just got this overpowering floral scent to the point I had to leave the room. And then it drifted after me.
Yeah.
So, if I'd been skeptical before, I've experienced it.
And I think a lot of people have, no matter how skeptical you are, we've all had an experience of walking into somewhere and just not feeling comfortable. We even say if there's been an argument, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
everywhere, you don't have to be super aware to notice these things. But if you're even noticing it to a small degree, then it could be holding you back.
Hmm.
You know, the
I,
properties you've mentioned
right.
were probably, especially the one that was really cheap, right? There's a reason that
Mhm.
no one was buying it. You don't have to be mega aware to know that something's going on there.
Right. Well, and I have a relative whose house I went in for the first time in years, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I was shocked because it was this atmosphere. It was just, I keep saying it felt like stepping into Miss Havisham's living room in the book, is that I believe that's Great Expectations. And even though I don't know if it really was dusty, but it felt heavy, it felt dark, it felt so dusty and old, and I was shocked.
Yeah, and these things happen to us all the time. And we can have moved into a house and go, yeah, it feels like home. And then something could happen. We have an
Right.
argument there, or someone else comes into our space
Yep.
and they bring their stuff and they leave it behind. Right?
Yep. And knowing what I do of some of the things that have happened in that house, it didn't surprise me. It did. And yet the more I thought about it, it really didn't. Like, well, that's the result of years of this negative energy. It leaves this residue. You have three readings ready for us. Go ahead with
I
the first
do.
one.
Okay. There are so many things in this world that we do not understand. I have no idea how the things I use every day, such as electricity, the phone, and the internet work. Yet we get so many benefits from them, and only question them if they don't work. What about other things that we don't fully understand, such as the extraordinary power of our own minds to reach out to other states of consciousness by telepathy, remote viewing, and precognition. Because science cannot yet identify the energies involved, these experiences are called paranormal. Yet we have all had inexplicable things happen around us. So it is not a big step to imagine the possibility of other non-physical worlds and beings who could be nearby to help and sometimes maybe hinder us. I have come to believe that as long as we are open-minded and not fearful, everyone can have a connection with these different realms and can learn to get help and guidance in their lives. Perhaps this book will give you food for thought. What is beyond doubt is that there are many strange energies around us, even if we cannot see them, touch, or feel them, and they are affecting us and the places we live. Quite apart from the energies of nature, we project ourselves, our life force, out into the world and leave an energetic footprint on other people and places. Have you ever visited an old building or even a certain room in a modern house and felt immediately uncomfortable? Somehow sensing there has been unpleasantness, unhappiness, or even violent argument there. This is because places have a way of storing energy of the past, whether positive or negative. Throughout this book, I will share some of my experiences and adventures, showing you that it is indeed possible to clear negative energy from your home so that it becomes a more peaceful and happy place to live. Or should you wish to move house, so that it becomes a more attractive property for buyers. So that was the
Wonderful.
first bit.
Yeah. Do you personally, okay, if I was going to match a drink to this, it would obviously have to be a Monster Energy drink. Then we'd both be bouncing off the walls. I had one once and I will never do it again. That was
Yeah, that's
oh
not
man,
good for me.
that was not, I will never touch those energy drinks again. So, do you personally have any explanation or ideas on what this energy is?
The way I look at it is we've got memory, right? So
Mhm.
it's like the house's memory. If you think of an inanimate object like a piece of clay, the biggest handprint leaves the biggest print in the clay. And
Mhm.
that's how a building is like the building has a memory. Because if we're all energy and objects have memories as well, you know, some mediums read rings and jewelry and things like that. So we all leave our energy around where we go. And a building has a memory not unsimilar to ours. Obviously, you know, it can't pick and choose what it chucks out at us where we can verbalize our memories.
Right.
So in a building, it might not be that you've got a spirit causing a problem. It could just be the memory of something that's happened. And sometimes they're lovely.
Mhm.
I did one that had a Christmas party, and I have to say the energy was so lovely. I just lingered there.
Uh-huh.
I was like, "This is nice."
I have a funny story about that. Two actually. I'll try to keep them short. The house we left behind in northern Minnesota, it had such a wonderful, peaceful energy, which is amazing because the previous owner had suffered a lot of very difficult health issues and finally died. And yet he had this wonderful, generous spirit. He had this sense of humor. They had filled the land with all these creatures, so you could drive around the ATV trails on our 29 acres, and you would see a mermaid sitting by a stream. You'd see a big statue of a bear fishing for fish. There were unicorns. Sasquatch was out there. All kinds of things. And the spirit held on. I mean, I don't know what it was, but things literally appeared and disappeared in our house. And would you have an explanation why some of these energies or spirits seem to be able to manifest?
Yeah. So the memories, I call it residual energy, which is like the house's memory. That normally tends to be the most powerful memory. So if it's a really good memory, like the Christmas is, then that's what shows up. If it's a not so pleasant, violent thing, then that shows up. With spirits, there is a number of reasons there could be that. So one, your loved ones, as we spoke about, just popping in to say, I'm still here, still love you, which we love. We want that, right?
Mhm.
They're not
Yes.
stuck. They're not stuck. They're just popping in and out to say they love you. Then you've got the spirits that are stuck. So there's normally two types. This is only my belief. If it's not yours, that's fine. Just leave it on the side. But one will be they don't know they're dead. So this happens when they've either died very quickly or very traumatically, right? And they just do not know they're dead. So
How
they're
how is that
still,
possible?
I
How is
don't
it
know.
possible to not know you're dead?
I honestly don't know, but it's sometimes it's like they're just. I was space clearing a property the other day, and there's a woman, and it was in an old post office, and there was a spirit woman, and she was literally still putting the letters in pieces of string. It's almost like her life was, I get up, I do my work, I go to bed. I get up, and she just kept doing it. Even in death,
That's
that's what
wild.
she was doing.
Mhm.
And she was doing that for like 200 years.
Wow.
And it's really hard to explain, and I don't know why. I do not know why, but this is what I saw, and this has happened before. So people just do not know they've died. So they just keep living, and then sometimes they can get really angry because they're like,
Hmm.
why is someone in my house?
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting. My husband and I like to watch the Dead Files. We haven't in a long time, but I see similar sorts of things there with Amy, what's her name? I forget what her last name is,
I haven't seen
where
it, so I can't comment.
it's an interesting show. And in fact, one of my previous guests happens to know Steve DeShivey, Shivey, I think it's pronounced, who works with Amy, and he finds out the history and things of the property and then matches it up with what she's sensing, but she doesn't know anything about the house before she goes in. So it's an interesting show. Um, by the way, can you hear my sheep?
Yeah. It's
If they
lovely.
hear me. Oh, I love them. They're hilarious. And normally our farmhand is here right about this time feeding them. But if they hear me or my husband out on our decks, then they start yelling at us, get over here and feed us. And the funniest part is if you hear a really deep voice, that's one of the ewes named Crinkles, and she's bold and aggressive. And then if you hear this little meh, meh, that's our ram with his big horns and his big chest, and he's got this little tiny meh. It's hilarious. So, do you have reading number two ready to go? You'll have to read over them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I had, sorry, I had done an oracle card reading for a client. I'll call her Jill. While we were chatting later, she said she had a problem with her house and asked if I would be able to help. When I arrived, even the outside seemed dark and uninviting, the total opposite to Jill's personality. I started with the bedroom. One reason one reason for this was that there was no way I was going to the loo without clearing the energy first. The second reason was that Jill's dog wouldn't go anywhere near the room, and would cry if the door was shut, which meant that the family had to bathe with the door open even when their friends were staying. It was not nice. I saw immediately that before it was a bathroom, it had been used as a room to hold children in, and what these children went through was unimaginable and horrific. What happened as I cleared the space by clapping and burning Palo Santo and sage was something I'd never experienced before, and it frightened Jill. As I was telling her about the man with the dark energy, a portly, grey and evil man, my face started to change. I could feel it being pulled down, and she could see it. Personally, I wasn't scared, as I could also see the army of angels in a circle of bright white silhouettes around me, and I knew without question that they were keeping me safe. Once I was sure the dark man had gone and all the residual pain, anger, and terror had been removed, I carried on with the clearing using my bells and singing bowl. As I went around the house, more amazing things started to happen. In one room, Jill suddenly said, "Your eyes are shining so brightly, and you look like you are shining. Your whole body is glowing." The angels were working really hard on that house. The house was on a hill and had two entrances, one for an apartment and one for the main house above it. We next moved down to the ground floor apartment, and this had the same kind of energy as the bathroom upstairs, uncomfortable and troubled. Jill's friends had been with us until now, but she point blank refused to go any further. As I worked, I saw a priest, and I knew that he'd been collaborating with the man from upstairs. Then had a falling out because they were both greedy, selfish, and evil men. They committed a lot of crimes together: theft, rape, and even murder. The priest had used the church as a cover story, although not very successfully, as the villagers knew what he was up to, but were all scared. As I worked and moved him away, the place became noticeably lighter. Jill couldn't believe it, saying it was just like someone had turned a light switch on. It took me 7 hours to clear that house, and it's fair to say I was thoroughly exhausted by the time I'd finished. But the results were better than I could have hoped for. Jill emailed me later to say that someone who'd entered the house could not believe the difference. She had finished an artistic commission that she'd been unable to before, and her business was now booming. Her neighbours, who were related to previous owner and had been causing a lot of problems with fighting and being threatening towards her, had totally calmed down and even started saying hello to her rather than shouting abuse. The really surprising thing for us both was that without changing her diet, she had lost the weight she'd been struggling with since moving into the house. This was an extreme situation, and it shows the huge effect that negative energy can have on the people who live with it.
That's an amazing story. Now, if I was going to pick a cocktail for this, I did some looking online, and there is a really neat looking drink called the Black Margarita. And that's what I would have picked for this dark presence of this man. Now, I found this comment about she saw your face change or you felt your face change. I have experienced that 3 times in my life, and I'll just mention one. This was, I don't know, 35 years ago. I went to a kind of rally, counter rally at the state capitol in Wisconsin. And, obviously I was on one side of the issue, somebody else was on the other side, and she started just screaming at me. And I could literally, it was like I could see her face changing shape. It was really, I mean, it's disconcerting the first time you see that happen. So, why does sound, do you have any guess why sound has a clearing effect?
Yeah, it's the vibration. It's the vibration. So sound has a vibration, and vibration changes energy. So that's why we use sound. So the sound literally, and if you clap around the room you're in when we finish talking, you're not in a room, but when you go in,
Mhm. Right.
if you
Well, I can do it in the screened-in porch too.
yeah, okay. So if you start clapping, you will hear the sound change so that you will hear the vibration changing. It will go from quite a dull sound to a more sharp sound. And
Mhm.
you can literally hear the vibration changing.
Right. Years ago, I went to a harp workshop on healing harp, and she was demonstrating how the sound lingers in the air. Are there some sounds that would have a negative impact? Like, can you accidentally use vibration to make it worse?
That's a really good question. I have no clue. Uh,
Hmm.
to be honest,
What, where,
I would say not. But then I guess if you know about dark magic, then
Mhm.
possibly yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, the things I use are all about
Mhm.
creating a high vibration. So I use
Right,
bells, like churches use bells. One of the
right.
reason is to change the energy, also to
Eh,
attract people to them, but it's also
right.
to ward off negative energy. Is one of the reasons.
So, what is your opinion on the 432 hertz debate?
What do you mean? What's my opinion on it? On the fact that they
Do you
changed it?
think Right. Do you think that it makes a difference? Supposedly, how we tune our pianos now to 440 is a negative energy.
I
And
I w-
it
I wouldn't say it was a negative energy. What I would
Mhm.
say is that yeah, they're not gonna they um the healing properties that it had before and the way that it inspired us and made us able to stand in our own powers was possibly a threat to the powers that be who have the power to change this. So it
Mhm.
keeps us by not using the best frequency for us. It's just another
Mhm.
way of controlling us. So I
So you
wouldn't
would
say that it's everything we listen to now is harming us,
Mhm.
but it's not at its optimum.
Yeah. Actually, we have two grand pianos in the house. We have one set to standard modern tuning. We have the other tuned to, I believe it's tuned to the Baroque system of tuning right now. So sooner or later, now that they've just been retuned, I need to have my husband play the same piece on each and listen to it and see
Yeah,
how obvious the difference is. Um, how do you explain the weight loss? That's wild.
it was literally the energy. I mean, this was a very extreme house,
Hmm.
a very, very extreme house. The weight, the negative energy in that property was so immense that it was physically weighing her down.
Wow. Yeah. As you were reading, now it's interesting. Sometimes when I read these, some things jump out at me. When I hear the author read it, other things jump out at me. And what jumped out at me as you read was that it took 7 hours to clear this house, and it sounds like that's unusual.
Yeah, that's a long time. I mean, it takes as long as it takes.
Hmm.
But I did do card reading in that time as well. But it was a big property and it was a big job. Um,
Hmm.
that was the first time my facial features had ever changed. So I wasn't
Right.
expecting that. And to be fair, driving home, the angels basically drove me home because I was absolutely exhausted.
Right. It jumped out at me because when I'm out there working with the animals, I usually have a video playing on a wide variety of topics. And one that has come across my radar is Father Chad Ripberger. I believe this was him, who is an exorcist. And he has made the comment that exorcisms used to be more rare. There were fewer genuine cases of exorcisms, and he could do them much more quickly. And he said, as there's getting to be more and more, call it negative energy, call it sin, immorality, whatever it is, where people are attracting these demons, negative energy, whatever you want to call it. He said these exorcisms are getting harder and harder to do, and they're taking longer. So I found that interesting, and I'm curious if you are experiencing anything like that, where it's getting harder to deal with these things.
No.
Okay.
What I would, this case, the house was split into two for a start, but
Mm-hmm.
so it was over 4 floors, right? It was huge, and it was a lot because I received so much information. That was more of it taking the time, because it was just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. So it was more that the information was so much, and the property was so vast, was
Mm-hmm.
more why it took me such a long time, rather than it doing quite quickly. I've had one that I've done from home that is a portal to, or was a portal, I've shut it, to demonic and black magic, which I
Mm-hmm.
didn't believe actually existed till I did this. I was like,
Wow.
okay.
That should scare people.
No, I'm not saying it to scare people. You would know, anyone would know that this was not a nice place to be. You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
readily go in it. And I was doing it from a plan. I wasn't physically there. If I was doing it physically there, it probably would have taken me longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't take that long, even though I had to keep taking breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was such thick energy. Also, it was a shock, because bear in mind, I didn't believe that this sort of thing existed before I did that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So also
Well,
got
and
to
that's
I
why I
have got to
say,
change my opinion.
right, that's why I say this should scare people. I think there are a lot of people who want to play around with this stuff. And they need to take it seriously. They need to realize there are some real forces out there that we don't understand, and they're not all good. And they really should learn a lot before they want to mess with this stuff.
I agree and I disagree. Okay,
Hmm.
so I believe that everyone can and should space clear their own property, right?
Hmm.
But the first thing they need to do is protect their energy. And if they are any way, shape, or form scared, do not do it.
Hmm.
Right? The chances of you, unless you're already aware of it, um, unleashing with space clearing, you're removing the negative. You're not enhancing it. You always want to go from that viewpoint. It's your intention. So
Hmm.
if you're already living in a space, the chances are there's nothing too bad, otherwise you wouldn't be able to
Hmm.
stay in that space.
Right.
But if you're scared, don't do it. But yeah,
I
no,
think maybe,
definitely people shouldn't be playing around with things they don't understand.
right, and maybe
You have
that's a
to have
better way of
respect.
phrasing it. This should make people think and take it more seriously. I'm just
And
checking
you've
if I
got to
have.
have respect for the other realms, right? If you're
Right.
going in with the attitude of for the greatest good of all, and I'm doing this to enhance the positive, get rid of the negative, they've put themselves in a bubble of protection. And there's on YouTube, even on my YouTube channel, there's free protection meditations, right? That has to be number one before you even consider space clearing your house, right?
Okay.
And it's free.
So on your YouTube channel, you dig into the issue of how to protect yourself and your
Yeah,
energy.
yeah. But
Okay.
in my opinion, people should do it because we meet people that drain our energy as well, right? So
Yes.
people should be protecting their energy as soon as they become aware that it's a thing. And there's a
Hmm.
million different ways of doing it, and do whatever one suits you best, but find a way to protect your own energy.
We're ready for reading number 3.
Okay. Another friend also asked me to space clear his property. Not because there was any issues, but he was intrigued to find out what secrets his home had to tell. He had moved from one of the Spanish islands with his 2 teenage daughters, and with a very clear vision of what their family home would look like. Indeed, he had spent a long time finding it. It was a cortico or farmhouse, just off a rambler, a dry riverbed. Remote yet accessible. You could walk to the nearest town from it, but would never find it if you didn't know where it was. It had everything he wanted, except that it was only had 1 bedroom. The plan was to put 2 yurts on the land for the girls, which would be wonderful and imaginative solution to the space problem. As I cleared the house, I found only imprinted energy, that of an old couple and a donkey. They had been escaping persecution in the 30s, which was common in this area of Spain, and had lived in a cave while they lovingly built their home. The present owner had not found the cave, but did say that, according to the previous owner, some of the hillside behind the house had been removed, so it was possible that there had been a cave there. The old couple had lived happily in their house until their deaths, the husband going first and then closely followed by his heartbroken wife. The house was then inherited by a family member and had become a party house, something that is commonplace in Spain when families inherit a cortico and use it just for family parties. Growing up myself in a family that would often gather and party with no excuse needed, I loved that idea. Because of this and the quiet nature of the old couple, the energy of this house was beautifully peaceful, full of fun and love. And I did still call in the angels to remove any negative energy, just to be 100% sure that all would be great for this lovely family.
Beautiful. Trying not to laugh, listening to the sheep yell at me back there. It's a little bit distracting, but they're starting to get a little more adamant. Um, what struck me in reading your book, I got through most of it. I shouldn't use the term got through. That sounds like I was slogging through, and it wasn't. It's all a matter of time. For those who know anything about my farm, we were dealing with predators getting at our chickens last week, and so we've put a lot of energy, so to speak, into securing their cage. And I'm currently trying to rescue the life of one that the other chickens started pecking after the predator scratched its back. So I thought she was a goner, and miraculously, she's doing well in there. However, my question was, it seems to me in reading your book that negative energy often overwhelms the positive. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely.
Why?
It's we're going
Are
back
we
to the
that miserable?
no. If we're going back to the houses have memories, right?
Hmm.
Now, we all have good, bad, and indifferent memories. However, where does our mind normally go unless we rein it in? It goes to the negative,
Hmm.
right? We are programmed to go to the negative, and it leaves a stronger imprint. There's more of an emotional feel. So that's why a lot of properties have negative energy, because this imprint is there because
Hmm.
it's the strongest one. So if, like, the family party, was really
Hmm.
strong and nothing else has happened in that space, then that's the memory that stays. But if, in another
Hmm.
part of that house, there was a lot of loss and death. So one of the bedrooms, there was a woman crying, was the predominant energy. So it's
Hmm.
what is the predominant energy?
Would you have advice? I would like to think that anybody listening would say, I want to leave a positive impact on the walls of my house. What would your advice be to them to focus more on the positive and make that the stronger, more dominant emotion?
Yeah, so what I would say is how you do that is to make sure that you're leading a more positive life and that you raise your vibration so that you're leaving positive energy rather than negative energy. So then it all comes because it all starts and ends with us as individuals.
Hmm. So it's really about making a conscious decision. I'm going to focus on the good. I'm going to laugh,
Yeah.
tell jokes, sing whatever. Um,
However, can I just say
yeah,
we are
yeah,
human, right? We are all
right,
living a
right,
human experience, and it's totally impossible to never have a negative thought. So, but
right,
beating yourself up about it isn't going to help, right? So
right.
just go,
That only
okay,
adds to it.
yeah, that was a negative thought. Clear, cancel, delete. I would try better, right? But you're gonna get
Yeah.
them. They're not gonna vanish. No one. I do not know one person that is positive 100% of the time.
No, that's impossible.
Yeah,
As you say, we're human, we can't. But I do think this is something I really have had to consciously unlearn. Growing up, there was somebody who was very negative, who would always say critical things about people. And I really, when you're absorbed by that, you're surrounded by it, even if you know it's wrong, you still have to work hard at breaking that. And you look at someone and you have to say, I'm going to see something positive in them. I'm not going to carry on this negativity. Um, your Some of your opening scenes in your book are very fascinating. I think it was a castle you were in, and you saw, was it a statue or a
yeah,
suit of armor?
a mannequin. So
Okay.
yeah, so like a statue, isn't it? Uh, yeah. So I don't know how old I was, probably 7. And we'd gone to this castle in Wales I think we'd gone for the day, can't remember. And this place was filled with spirit. And we were walking up the stairs, and they put this mannequin in there, and it had its head under its arm. And there was the spirit man stood behind it, and I just was like, no, I am not going up. I was a child that just did as she was told. I never created a scene, apart from Len. It's like, no, we never went up those stairs.
What I found interesting, first of all, that it took you till you were what, 20 years old to realize other people weren't seeing these things?
Yeah.
What what finally made you realize nobody else is seeing this? Most people, I should say.
Yeah, someone said to me, you do realize that most people can't see what you're seeing. And I
Hmm.
really did not have a clue. Growing up, it wasn't talked about in my house. My aunt does similar work to I do, and her and my mum could always see stuff. In fact, my aunt and I used to wind my mum up because it frightened my mum. Um, so it was just something you don't talk about.
Hmm.
So for me, it was quite normal, and I was pretty lucky that the friends I had at school were like, "Oh, it's just Sam," and didn't really question. It was just like,
Hmm.
oh, that's just what she does. That's who she is. And they never told me. No one told me. My dad was
Hmm.
very psychic, but I didn't know until after my mum died because she was scared.
And why didn't your parents, did they not pick up that you were seeing this stuff? And
But,
how could they not have? But if they did, why didn't they tell you what's
but
going on?
because my mum was scared.
Okay.
My mum was terrified. She wouldn't go to bed without leaving the hallway light on because we had a spirit woman who used to
Hmm.
be on the hallway or on the end of my bed. She wasn't scary. In
Hmm.
fact, she was my friend. Uh, right? But it scared my mum. She didn't understand it. She couldn't express it. All she knew was that, hang on a minute, there's a dead person in the house. And so it
Hmm.
scared her. And my dad never said anything because he loved my mum so much. He just didn't want to upset her. So it
Uh-huh.
wasn't until my mum had died, and my dad was actually over here helping us look for properties in Spain, and we were staying in one apartment, and he was in the one downstairs, and he said, "Sam, who are all these spirits in it?" And I was like, "Whoa, what? You can see them,
You
right?"
can see them. Yeah.
And it's like total revelation for me.
Hmm.
So I was very lucky in the fact that I was not told to shut up. I wasn't made
Hmm.
wrong at all. It was just not talked about.
Now, I have a question. And again, this just occurred to me as you were talking. I heard a story maybe about a year ago. I was reading a book, and it was about, I think in World War II, the pilots I'm positive it was pilots, were given red night goggles, and they had to switch them to, I believe, their green night goggles now, because every time they put on these red night vision goggles, they saw demons. And is there something? So I have another friend who's actually been a guest on here, and she got into this physical phenomenon that some people have more cones in their eyes and they can see a different spectrum of colors. Do you think that is there like a biological genetic reason why some people can see these and others
No,
can't?
um,
No? Okay.
I don't think so. This is my view, rightly or wrongly. This is what I think. I think we were all born with this ability. Every
Hmm.
single person. Every single person, to some degree or another. Some people it will be stronger and some people it will be weaker, but everyone has this ability. The difference is that for some people, it's not programmed out of you, right? So
Hmm.
we just didn't talk about it. I wasn't told I was wrong. I wasn't told I was mad. It wasn't labeled with anything. It was just part of me. So that, I think, protected my abilities to a huge degree.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I was 20 that I realized that not everyone could see what I could see. And even then it was like, oh, okay, I better be quiet. Yeah. I tried to shut it all down. Yeah, no.
Hmm.
It wasn't going anywhere.
So here's, I think, my final question. You mention in the book that these energies, I'm just checking my notes to make sure I get this right. I think you said that these energies tend to remain as dark shadows in corners.
A lot of the time energy gets stored in corners. Right. So an entity won't necessarily be stuck in a space. They might be stuck in a room. They might be stuck in an
Hmm.
area of a room. But energy, if you think of cobwebs, right? Where are they? They're always in the hardest
Hmm.
places. It's the same with the
Hmm.
heavy energy. They always go to the
Right.
hardest places to get to. So
Hmm.
that's what I mean by they can get stuck in
It just
corners.
seems, and again, the reason this jumped out at me is personal experience. One of the houses my husband and I lived in only briefly, somebody there had been practicing new age and occult things. I believe she did try to cast spells in that house, and my husband kept saying he could see or he could sense shadows in the corners specifically. And in fact, our dog that we had at the time, there were two rooms primarily used by this person, and our dog kept
Dog
pooping
won't
in
go
one
in there.
and peeing in the other. And this was a dog who literally, her dying days, she refused to wet her bed. She held it for 26 hours before I could finally help her get out the door. So this was not a dog who wanted to do this in the house. And yet those two rooms, nothing we did could stop her. So I found that very interesting, and again, lines up with my experience.
Yeah, and dogs, any animals actually, are really sensitive to it because they're not told that it doesn't exist, right? So they
Right.
have all that natural ability. And so if your dog is barking at nothing, they're barking at something, right? The
Mhm.
dog in one of the readings just refused point blank to go in this room, just
Right.
would not, and would bark and bark and bark.
Right. So dogs are good to have around for that reason.
Yeah.
I love that you stressed repeatedly in your book the importance of giving thanks. Why is that so important?
Because if you're grateful for things, if you're it makes you feel better, right?
Mhm.
Because if you go,
Definitely.
okay, I may not have everything I want, but I got a roof over my head, I got a cup of tea in my hands, I'm luckier than some. I'm
Yep.
grateful for that. But also what it does is it attracts more things for you to be grateful for.
Hmm.
So that's what we
I think,
want. So, and most of us are really lucky, even when we're having a really time.
yes,
We've always something to be grateful for. And by
yes,
focusing on that really helps to raise our vibration and have, like we were saying about earlier, how do we have a positive effect on our properties? Be grateful for what you got, even if it's not
right.
everything you want.
Yes. Well, we can always want more, can't we?
Yeah,
And that's really the way I look at it. The reason we're in Tennessee is because of things happening in our previous state that just they increased our taxes by 50%, and we had to leave this house I was telling you about, this really wonderful, amazing house and land. And it's always this, is the cup half half full or half empty? I'm right about
yeah.
in the middle now. And I could sit here and be angry. I could be mad. I could rant and rave. Okay, easy come, easy go. We got 2 wonderful years in that house. We were able to leave and escape this financial burden that had been placed on us. Some people can't,
Yeah.
and it is so much about focus. And I think that's such an important message that our words have power, our attitude has power.
Yep, definitely. Definitely.
So, where can people find you online?
Okay, so the book is here, Echoes Within Walls, and that's available from any bookshop worldwide and all digital platforms. And you can find me, my website is samritchie.com. No, it's not, samangelguide.com. And Facebook, Sam Angel Guide. YouTube, Sam Angel Guide. Instagram, Sam Angel Guide. So it's quite easy. Sam
I
Angel
see a
Guide. And
pattern here.
yeah, yeah, that's so I don't forget.
That's wonderful. People can find us at booksandbrews.net. They can find me at lauravosica.com. This will be on the YouTube channel, so anyone seeing it is already there. For anyone listening to it, somehow not there, we do have a YouTube channel at Symbol Books and Brews spelled out. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Look up Books and Brews with Laura Vosica and Chris Powell, and you will find us. And if you would like to see the sheep that you've heard yelling at me throughout this program, go to glenmerrillfarms.wordpress.com. I think I mentioned lauravosica.com. And you can go to our sponsor, gabrielshornpress.com, and find books by Gabriel's Horn authors. I happen to think they're great books and great authors. So thank you very much for being on the program.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.